Hi, my name is Atti, and I am not feeling ready to make this video. I am not in a particularly prepared place, but here's the thing. I know that I'm not going to make this video unless I just go ahead and make it, so no prep, not even going to edit this. Here goes. Okay, so I've been watching a lot of what is called booktube on YouTube as of the past few months, and for those of you who don't know or can't suss out, that's just people who are talking about the books that they've read. Typically, it's people, it's always people who, read like just copious amounts of books, really passionate about books, read tons of them, and like every month they have these like giant stacks of books. They're like, these are the books I read this month, bam, and I'm going to talk about all of them and stuff like that. And the way that my brain works is that whenever I see something that I like or enjoy, and I do really enjoy these, even if I don't particularly relate to them, which I often don't, they're very comforting to watch. And so every time that I see something that I like, my brain goes, you should make your own version of that. And so, of course, I've had this instinct to be a booktuber too, or at least make videos like that sometimes. And the thing is that I don't feel at all qualified. This often happens. I see something I like, I want to make my own version of it, but a lot of the time, seeing as I don't know how to do everything, there's a lot of stuff that I can't actually do my own version of. Instead, I just think about it a lot. This is kind of one of those situations. I read a lot when I was a kid. I read really. I was an avid reader until about my mid-teens, and starting at my mid-teens, I kind of became a person who thinks of themselves as somebody who doesn't read pretty much at all. I've read only, I think of myself as somebody who's only read a handful of books as an adult, and so obviously not qualified to make a book channel, or so I thought. And then I was thinking about it, and I realized kind of separately from that this year, for the past almost a year, 9 months ish, I don't know exactly, I've been making this tradition of every single week, pretty much, I go to the library, except for the period of time where the library was closed. But I would go to the library, and I would get anywhere from 10 to 50 books, and I would read them all in that week, so that I, in time to take them all back and return them so that I could check out another gigantic batch of books like that. I've been reading, like 10, 20, sometimes 50 books every single week for most of this year. How can that be true? And I also still think of myself as somebody who doesn't read. Well, the thing is that my concept of like what counts as reading as an adult, for some reason was stuck in the mindset of like, like novels and stuff. And the thing is, I don't read novels. I pretty much exclusively read, with a few exceptions of chapter books and a few novels every now and then, like 3 maybe, in my adult life. More than that, but anyways, I read picture books. I read picture books written for children, and that's what I like to read. I am also kind of an aspiring author, and one of my focuses is on children's books. So that's part of why. But I'm not trying to make excuses. I genuinely read picture books the way that I think most adults would read a novel, for my own enjoyment, not just for research. That's what I like to read. That's what I think I like as a good story. And you know what? Like, that counts as reading. That counts as reading, and it's a very simple revelation, but that's the revelation I had. This is something that somebody wrote. This is something that somebody was probably very proud of. There are good children's books. There are really good children's books. There are terrible children's books. So I'm going to talk about how I feel about it. Like I said, been getting these batches for every week, and now I've got last week's haul that I am going to take back to the library today, in order to make room for next week's haul. And so this is I've got a pile of books next to me, and I'm going to give you my opinions of them. I'm going to actually have a few of them on the floor around me because I'm a disorganized mess, but I'm going to go through in generally the order of like starting with the ones I didn't think that much of and going towards the ones I like more. So let's get into it. This book was called Armstrong. To be honest, I didn't actually properly read this one. I more skimmed it because it's thick. And more importantly than that, although, it's thick, but like a lot of the pages are just illustrations, and a lot of the pages that aren't just illustrations are like, not that much text. But you can see here, that's a chapter title. you got to do some convincing to get me to read a book with chapters. So I just really skimmed this. I think it's probably good if you like this kind of book, so I'm just going to sum it up so that you know what it is. This is a book about a mouse who wants to go to the moon, so he does a bunch of science and engineering in order to achieve that goal, and it's kind of tied into the story of how humans went to the moon in real life. So it's sort of a historical book, but mostly it's almost entirely it's just a book about mice doing human things, and that may as well be a genre in its own. If you're one of those mice doing human things people, might want to check out this book. And I think there's another one about Charles Lindbergh, or a mouse named Lindbergh. Sorry, that's by Torben Coleman Armstrong. That's the name of that book. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna pick these up off the ground with my feet. Okay. This is a pair of books I got. They're a pair because they're the same author and illustrator pair. I got them because the art is gorgeous, and the art is gorgeous. I will show you briefly before I rip into this book. But super cute. I love these big fantasy-looking plants. I love the art style of the characters. My other favorite page is also these plants. The art style reminds me of, here, I got an example here, of the illustrations of Robert Bright. This is my red umbrella. This is from my personal permanent collection. If you're not familiar, Robert Bright's drawings are super adorable. The picture of the girl is adorable, but is there a bear in this one? The bear is the most adorable thing in the world. Look at that guy. So I love this illustrator, and really need to get more of his books, actually. And this kind of style reminded me of that. I love the way that the mouth is an open-ended line like that. Really cute. Unfortunately, the story made me sick. It really icked me out. It's not really a story. It's more of a poem, but it's got. I feel like there's a lot of kind of forced feeling rhymes, but that's not even my biggest problem with it. My biggest problem with it is that it's just extremely saccharine and mushy and gushy in a way that feels to me like a Hallmark card. If I had a little land, I feel like I have to read it in that voice. If I had a little land, I would name it there. There would be my home, be it stormy, be it fair. Like, I don't know, what are you, like a what's the word I'm looking for? My brain's saying Neopets, but I'm talking about Beanie Babies, Beanie Baby Tag or something. This one was weird to me. If I had a little boat, I would name it Treasure. Treasure would make me glow inside, more than I could measure. It's a boat. Okay, and then, what else? Like, if I had a little brother, I would name him Sky. Sky would be the air I breathe. Together we would fly. What are you talking about? To me, this is ungrounded. It aches me out. Like I said, it feels too. You know how people sometimes talk to kids in this sort of like, "Aren't you adorable?" kind of voice. Cannot stand it. Talk to kids like people. I don't feel like this book does that. I'm not gonna critique all of these books from the point of view of a kid, because like I said, I read books. I read these books as an adult reader, for their own merit, for my own entertainment. Sorry about the light behind me, but that's. The kid in me is pissed about that. The adult in me is too. So I had a hard time reading Yellow Kayak, which is the other book that I got from the same author-illustrator pair. I should probably say their names. This is Nina Layden and Melissa, don't know how to say that last name, Castrillon, something like that. Once again, gorgeous illustrations, something I really like about this book. The other one, I kind of like the line art more. This one, I feel like the focus is more on the colors. It's got a big focus on this pink, yellow, teal combo that's on most pages, and I think that's a gorgeous color combo. So really pretty pictures. Honestly, the problem with this book is that I'd read the other one first, and I just was not ready to get into this after reading that, and how grossed out that made me. So I didn't really properly finish this book. I read like the first half of it, and it hasn't got much of a story, though. I feel like it's kind of dull from what I did read. It's just the text is just like this: Yellow Kayak, lightning streaks, thunder roars, seawall leaks. Now, I have a lot of my favorite kids books. In fact, some of the books I've even tried to write. But favorite books of mine, like there's a old children's book that is adapted from E.E. Cummings' poem called Hist Whist. I love that. It has no plot. It's just kind of scene setting. It's just kind of aesthetic, like laying out of aesthetics. I think that can be great. A lot of my favorite kids books have that. So that's not inherently the problem that I have with this. The way that this one is done is boring to me. Eyes watch, then understand, pushing gently toward land. I don't know what it's talking about. It doesn't feel. I don't feel a sense of. I don't feel stirred by this. It feels like it's supposed to be about adventure, but doesn't feel adventurous to me. That's just maybe me. Definitely, the art is worth checking out. So maybe you check it out and you like it better than me. Okay, moving on. This one's called Beyond the Pond by Joseph. Wow, these last names are hard. Kuffler? I'm going to say Kuffler. And I didn't like this book either. And I'm starting with the ones I don't like. And I feel like, wow, I'm really having some light problems over here. Right. Lighting changed and it's a little bit gross. I'm just going to go with it. It's really hard to be somebody who is both totally a perfectionist and also does not have the tolerance to spend a long amount of time finicking over details these days. I just want to do the thing, but I guess I will edit that out because... okay, where was I? What was I talking about? Beyond the Pond. I feel like this is a book that suffers from kind of the author admiring Where the Wild Things Are too much. So this is the thing that I have this instinct is a problem for a lot of authors. Where the Wild Things Are is an amazing book, and we all love it, and we all want to write a book that is that good while being that direct. Like it's distilled. There's something so straightforward and great about it, and yet it's so powerful, and it also just changed like book writing in general. Like it was an important book too, and of course we all want to be that person, but we can't all be Marie Sendak. And something that I've kind of learned from my own writing is like it's really tempting to try and be Where the Wild Things Are, but and I think I read a lot of books that make me think the author has the same kind of feeling, but the problem is that the difference between books that are trying to be Where the Wild Things Are and Where the Wild Things Are itself is that Where the Wild Things Are doesn't suffer from trying to be Where the Wild Things Are. It doesn't suffer from trying to be anything. It just is what it is, and bees what it bees. Anyways, so I feel like this is a book that is an example of a book that I get the vibe that they read, this Joseph guy read Where the Wild Things Are and wanted to write a book that was, like a child going on this like mysterious unexplained adventure into this weird world, and that's great, but it just feels like it's overwrought, they too much trying, like the book kind of it works too hard to try and get at that, in my personal opinion, and the result is something that's just, it feels, even though it doesn't repeat itself, it feels there's something about it that feels like it's repeating itself to me, in its just insistence on like trying to be something instead of just letting itself be whatever it is. So the other problem I have with this book is that I am personally not a big Wes Anderson fan, and this book gives me heavy Wes Anderson vibes. I'm going to show you this page because it really does this. Kid is getting ready to like dive into his pond in his backyard to go on this epic adventure, and so it's like, so Ernest D gathered his explorer supplies, and it's got this kitschy layout of little kitschy things. We've got a vintage diving helmet and the magnifying glass and the binoculars and the postcard and the camera. I mean, even if it weren't laid out like this, I feel like this would feel like Wes Anderson stuff. So anyways, that kind of influence, there's a few exceptions to my disliking of Wes Anderson films, but in general, that's a turnoff for me. So not my kind of book. It's it's got a little bit of surrealist adventure in the end of it, but again, it just feels like it's like somebody wants to write an adventure book instead of an adventure book just kind of flowing out of them. That's the vibe that I got, so that's kind of why I didn't love that book. Okay, moving on. A Day So Gray. This one, we're going to get the less offensive, not that those were offensive necessarily, but like the less, I didn't hate this book. It was just boring. It's called A Day So Gray, and the illustrations are cute enough. The character illustrations, I think, are really great. I love those soft lines, kind of reminds me of like Harold and the Purple Crayon kind of vibes. Curious George, the character illustrations are really simplistic and I think that that's a really nice combo with how detailed the environments are. So the point of this book is that it's, girl one is saying all these colors are boring, and girl two is saying that they're not boring, and here's all the subtleties of all of these colors, which means that the story is not very not very storyish. It feels more like a poem. It feels like a series of statements about ways to describe color. So for me, it just didn't really do much. It kind of was just there. It didn't entertain or take me anywhere, or make me laugh, or make me feel a stirring inside of me or anything. But the as a result of the kind of showing this concept of how much subtlety there is in even the plainest colors, the backgrounds are these gorgeous, interesting, complex washes of color, which I think is a really nice contrast with the simplistic character illustrations that have more bold solid color. So it has its merits, but for me this was a boring one. Excuse me, my throat's a little bit dry. This one's called Grant and Tilly Go Walking. Oh, did I mention the author and illustrator of this last one? Sorry, I want to do that. Day So Great, Marie Lamba, art by Alia Marley. I'm not great with names again. So that's what that is. Okay, Grant and Tilly Go Walking. This is by Monica Culling and Sydney Smith. Not sure who's the author, who's the illustrator, but I assume that's an author-illustrator pair. This book is a sort of historical fiction book, I guess, about Grant Wood, the guy who painted American Gothic. In this story, he lives on a farm. He goes to the big city in Paris, and then he comes back to the countryside and paints American Gothic. That's what happens. The problem with this book is that it really isn't any more exciting than that. The most exciting moment of this book for me is that there's this one page near the middle of the book that just randomly has this printing error, or maybe a scanning error even. There's these big dark streaks, and the text is all kind of blurred a little bit, and the illustration is too. Look at that. I was like, whoa, something interesting in this book, because other than that, it's just things happening. It's got kind of you kind of really want to read this book in a sort of slow Southern drawl, I feel like, and it's really dry. There's not a lot of sense of of something happening, even though things, I guess, happen. I wasn't moved. Okay, this one is another one that I really wanted to like, but it's another boring one to me. The Pancake King, story by Phyllis Lafarge, and pictures by Seymour Chwast. I don't know how to pronounce last names, okay? The reason I wanted to like this book is because it's got this really interesting 60s, 70s psychedelic style. Look at these illustrations with these flat. I love this art style. It's really unique for a kids book, and even more than that, I feel like I love the layout, because all of the text is contained in these tight little boxes on the sides of the page, which I think makes for these really compelling layouts. I also like this. The pancakes are always steaming in these very weird geometrical outline shapes. I think that's cool. Anyways, the story is just kind of whatever. It's about it kind of reminds me of the movie Speed Racer, if you've seen that. It's about a kid who has a great passion, in this case for making pancakes, and is really good at it because of his passion, and then some corporate stooge comes in and wants to make him a franchise, and he gains some success through that, but ultimately by the end of the story realizes that he doesn't want to be so corporate, and so he kind of leaves the business, I guess, which in Speed Racer they don't leave the business, but metaphor over. So yeah, art style pretty cool, but it's just kind of a flat story. It's just I guess the problem is it's exactly what you'd expect from the brief summary I just gave you. If you wanted to write a story where a kid was good at making pancakes and then got famous for making pancakes and then decided that he didn't like being famous, you could tell me the in-betweens of that plot. It just goes really straightforward for the most part. So, oh well. The reason that I am slightly more interested in this book is for those if you like this kind of thing, it does have a pancake recipe in the back. So I will be photographing that and trying it out at some point. Okay, on to the books that I thought were okay. This book is the lowest on my ones that I thought were okay because it's just not my kind of book, but I love the illustrations. So again, I'm not the best at name pronunciation. This one's by Hyewon Kyung. I think that's how I'm going to choose to pronounce that. Hopefully I'm not super far off. And so the illustrations are gorgeous, and I'm really interested in checking out the rest of this author's books because I think that there's huge potential in a lot of the time the art style, it goes a really long way towards making me like a book. In this case, it didn't go all the way, but this art style could if the book were just slightly more my type of book. The thing about this is that it's a really, really, really simplistic book. A dinosaur is sitting on a sort of prehistoric seesaw, and increasingly larger dinosaurs come along and say, "I'm bigger than you." So the story is really that. I'm bigger than you. I'm bigger than you, which is also the title of the book. So it's very true to its mission statement. The art is super nice. I love the textures. It's super gorgeous. Honestly, if you had the money, I would recommend getting this book just for the sake of, like having a nice art book almost. And it's kind of fun because in the end it has like a little, like pronunciation guide for these different dinosaur species, and so there's a little bit of science stuff, more science stuff, in that it describes what like the physics of simple machines because of the seesaw and the lever that's featured heavily in the book. So that's cool. It's all good, but it's just not a story. It's just a series of it's got the most simplified pared down story it could possibly have. That's not the kind of book that I like. Okay, so this book is by Elizabeth Laird and Jenny Lukander, I'm going to say. Grobble Chops. It's adapted from a tale by Rumi. I'm guessing the original tale by Rumi is not called Grobble Chops, but I don't know what the original tale by Rumi is called. I'm interested in finding out. The art style is kind of like, it interests me. I like a lot of the details. But overall, I'm not a huge fan. It kind of reminds me of well, I'll find the page that really exemplifies this. There's pages where there's lots of movement that's kind of illustrated by these, big splashes of color. Kind of reminds me of Ralph Steadman or Henrik Drescher, if you're familiar with that kid's book author. I love Henrik Drescher. This style, to me, there's a potential for it to be a little bit creepy. For me, it just is a little bit busier, I think, than... Well, that's not the problem with it. I'm mixed feelings about the art. I do love some of the details about the art. I'll show you this. There's these beautiful rugs throughout the book. Maybe it's the same rug over and over again, but every time I saw that rug, I was just like, look at how pretty that rug is. I really like that attention to detail. I thought that was great. I appreciate the off-kilter kind of lack of perspective. That's something I like in my own art. You can see in a few shots in the background, I think that's the Moomin house. So, little details like that are fun. But the story is more what I like than the art, honestly. And the reason that I like the story is because it starts out as this kid who's afraid of a monster, and the dad kind of saying like, "Oh, we can get that monster," but the dad slowly twists the story, or twist the conversation with the kid over time to a place where the kid actually like accepts that maybe they'd like to be friends with the monster, and the monster could be friendly. That's something that my parents did when I was a kid. Kind of this idea that, sure, there's things that are actually dangerous out there, things that you should be wary of, but like the dark in your room at night, and like creepy crawlies, little bugs and spiders and stuff like that. Those are things that people tend to talk about as being spooky, but actually they don't really present a threat. And I think that a way to like talking to kids in a way that like respects the fact that they're afraid that there might be a monster in their bed, instead of just like denying that there's a monster and acting like that's a solution to the problem, kind of acknowledging that like, okay, like I understand that you take this seriously, but let's talk about the idea of actually like, aligning yourself with that scary thing and being friends with it, and not necessarily making it like into something that's not scary, but being like, I can be friends with scariness in a way. And that's kind of what this book gets at by the end. And I appreciate that message, because it's a surprisingly rare message to hear. So I thought that was cool. Okay, getting into the books that I quite liked. Let's start with this one. The Wizard's Tears. So I'm really interested to learn more about the background of this. It's written by Maxine Kumin and Anne Sexton. I gather that this book was written quite a long time ago, 60s, 70s. And it's this pair, these authors are a pair of poets who sounds cute. They were like friends and poets and would like bounce each other's poems off each other and kind of like write side by side together. That sounds adorable. And then apparently they started writing kids books together, and this is one of their kids books. However, I believe that what's going on here is this is not the original, that the illustrations were done in 2017 as part of a reissue. The illustrations are great. Once again, we've got this kind of like flattened perspective in a lot of cases, or sort of wonky perspective, and really dramatic moments and character designs. Lots of like really tiny feet and really long legs, and I love this kind of stuff. The color is great. The sort of like sometimes there's an outline, sometimes there's not. I love the variety. I think that the art style really works, and it kind of, the playfulness of it kind of to me carries over into the typography even, where we've got on a single page like these big words and then this text and then this dramatic capitals, and on here we've got like some colored text and stuff like that. So the text kind of it plays around, but it's also, I felt, really laid out. I love the design of this book overall. The story itself is like certainly respectable. It's a little bit dry. It's a little bit long. It's just, I think the thing about this is that both the good and the bad of this book comes from the fact that it was very clearly written by poets. It's meandering. It's long. It feels a little bit I don't know, intellectual sometimes, I feel like. And the story is it's about this young wizard that takes over after an old wizard retires and tries to solve all these town's problems with magic, but then gets a little bit in over their heads with like getting basically power drunk on the magic, and then the end is this really weird kind of veering off into, they have to like solve a riddle in 3 days in order to undo the bad magic that they did, and the answer to the riddle is really obvious to the reader, but it takes them like 4 pages to figure it out, and I don't really understand that. There's moments of humor, but the thing is that the humor comes again from the kind of poetic aspect of it, where the story is just very surreal, or not very surreal, but it's definitely got a surreal bent, and goes into weird places and says funny things and is anachronistic and silly in a very poetic, like kooky, weird, like unusual way, and so, just for the sake of being like a off-kilter oddball kids book, I really appreciate it. I think that there's also sort of certain inaccessibility to the way that is done, but I don't really care. I think this is a pretty good book. Probably won't get it for my personal collection though. So yeah, that's The Wizard's Tears by Maxine Kumin and Anne Sexton, and the new illustrations are by Karen Katz. So great job with those. They're all collecting bees in jars in order to cure chicken pox. That kind of thing, All right, getting into the books that I loved. This is called Hank's Big Day, and it is adorable. The Story of a Bug by Evan Kuhlman and Chuck. Once again, it's a Groening. I'm gonna say Groening. Okay, I'm gonna probably sound hypocritical here, because the thing is, the story doesn't really matter to me here. This doesn't have as much of a story. There's a bug that goes on a walk and meets a kid, and that's about it. But oh my god, this book has like everything I really want. Look at these adorable bug illustrations. I always need more adorable bug illustrations. These are just like top of the heap, the most adorable bug illustrations I've seen in a really, really long time. The one of the illustration aspects / story aspects of this is that as the bug is kind of crawling through the world, there pretty much every single page has these little anecdotal like labels for things. So like a little description and an arrow pointing to what's in the picture, and that's really like on pretty much every single page. A shady spot. some stripy art, and it kind of labels everything, and I am just a huge sucker for that. That's just like one of the things I like. It's so rare to find, so it's like really exciting when I find it. This kind of like diagrammatic children's book stuff, because a lot of the kids books that, or a lot of the books that I read when I was a kid were like nonfiction books, and so of course they had those diagrammatic elements where it was kind of like labeling things. When that's like worked into a more of a whimsical fictional world, I'm just a sucker for it. It also kind of reminds me of this one particular Calvin and Hobbes panel, or it was a Sunday strip, this big Sunday strip where Calvin has drawn like a snow fort, and there's all these, you know, arrows and descriptions and handwritten descriptions pointing to the different parts of the snow fort. It really made an impression on me. I don't know why, I'm a sucker for it. Anyways, this really satisfies with these adorable, beautiful color, beautiful line work, beautiful character, and like little labels. A curious cricket, a weird worm. I love it so much. You know, and it's also a story about a kid who loves bugs, which I think we need more of in this world. There is a good number of books that about kids loving bugs, but I think that that's indicative of the fact that there's a few passionate people who realize that that's a statement that really needs to be made, because there's a lot of like anti-bug rhetoric in this world, and kids do love bugs, and we need to be represented, and we need to be celebrated, us kids who like bugs. So really recommend this one. I love it. I will probably be buying this for my personal collection. Okay. My throat is so dry, I should have gotten a cup of water for this. Okay, moving on. Only a few left. These are two books I got by this author slash, I believe, artist, Jim LaMarche, or Jim LaMarche, who knows names. Okay, these books are really interesting to me. I was expecting from the illustration style, honestly, that these would be a little bit on the dry side, and they are a little bit longer than a lot of the other books that I have here, but they're actually really successful in getting across this feeling of mysticism. I'll get into that in a moment. So they're really similar books. They both are about kids who are spending a summer in next to a body of water out in the middle of nature, presumably somewhere in America, and definitely somewhere in America, and both of them feature randomly at least one moment of like animals getting like surprisingly comfortable with humans, which is part of the thing that kind of pushes this kind of feeling of mysticism. So throughout these stories, they're very definitely like the author like drawing upon the nostalgia of their own childhood in the country in the summer, and so in that way they feel sort of autobiographical, and they feel sort of like, you know, just talking about the day-to-day of summer life as a kid. But there's this there's these little moments of mystery and like something maybe kind of spiritual happening and something kind of mysterious happening in just the great thing is that it's not that's never really pointed out by the story. The story never makes a big deal out of it. It never harps upon that the way that I'm kind of about to do now. Instead, it just is kind of implied. There's these little tiny sentences in the midst of what is otherwise just like a story about stuff happening, that is kind of like you get this growing sense that something a little bit mysterious is going on, maybe a little bit mystical is going on behind the story, and the story doesn't say what that is. It just gives you that sense, and I love that. It like makes me feel. It stirs something in me, you know. It makes me actually feel, instead of telling me to feel it, it actually makes me feel that feeling of like the sense of wonder at nature in summertime when you're a kid, which is what these books are about. And I just really respect the author's ability to pull that off. If it actually reminded me of a lot of things. It reminds me a lot of E.B. White. If you've read and enjoy Trumpet of the Swan or Stuart Little, it really has that vibe, especially in how, like, not just how kind of like the like slight, you know, if Stuart Little especially, like this slight magical realism to it, this slight otherworldly quality behind the scenes of the story, but also in how kind of serious and somber it is for a kid's book, which I know can be dry, but I think really works if you're able to actually conjure up that stirring sense of mystery, and that's what they do. Another book that this reminds me of is Wayne Scott Weasel, which is obviously very E.B. White like. That isn't actually an E.B. White book, is it? It's very E.B. White like, so it's hard to tell from memory. Actually, I can't remember who wrote that. I have it in my room, but I'm not going to go check. And finally, it also reminds me of Chris Van Allsburg a little bit, who a lot of you probably know from Jumanji. I think of Mysteries of Harris Burdick. I mean, Chris Van Allsburg is the master of like this sense that something bigger is happening just behind the story, you know. So really great. I love both of these. They're really, really similar, but honestly, I was not disappointed by that. After reading one, I was ready for more. So the fact that these books are sort of could be substituted for each other, I didn't think was a problem. Okay, the final book that I have here, and then I'll go to the library and drop these off and get my new batch, is Brundabar. This is not written by Maurice Sendak. It's here. I'll read what it says in here. It says, retold by Tony Kushner, pictures by Maurice Sendak, after the opera by Hans Krasse and Adolf Hofmeister. Okay, this book is so good. This book is so good. And, you know, to be expected from anything that has Maurice Sendak's name attached to it. It's like you would expect from a Maurice Sendak book. It is not one of these books that feels overly self-conscious about being for kids, which I think results in not just like the better picture books, but also better books for kids, if that's your goal in, you know, reading picture books. It's like a German folktale vibe. It also it's very like whimsical and childlike, and has these like kind of fairy tale-ish elements. There's some really, really great, I feel like you don't see this very often in Maurice Sendak's art, but really great architecture, really beautiful pictures of buildings. It's also hella freaking dark. Okay, we've got like on pretty much like the third page or something, so their mom is like really sick, and so they get a doctor, and their doctor like sends them off on a mission to go get milk, and so here they are running off to get the milk, and they say, so we grabbed a bucket and we ran to town. Oh, our daddy died when we were babies and we don't remember him at all. And it's just like throws that in there. So it's very dark, and that adds this sort of like brings you down to earth and respects the reader, and provides a little bit of excitement, a little bit of atmosphere, and it does something for me, because it just kind of it catches my interest, makes me want to see more. Like this feels like a real complicated and slightly there's something just kind of like I feel like it's like the easier way to do what fantasy tries to do in a really heavy-handed way, like the fantasy genre for adults, where it just kind of like puts things a little bit off kilter, so you're excited to see like it adds drama, you know what I mean? Like this world is like pretty and whimsical, but also seedy and dark, and I think that juxtaposition makes you excited to explore, you know, like that's the kind of the feeling that I get, and it's done so like well and succinctly in this, as it is in most Maurice Sendak things. There's a bunch of characters in here that are like legitimately terrifying in the way that they're illustrated. The baker's not so scary, but oh my god, the freaking milkman is like rivals the ice baby from Outside and Over There for scariest Maurice Sendak drawing ever, in my opinion. So that adds to that, and it's just kind of there's like a Roald Dahl kind of aspect of like scary grown-ups, and that's kind of what the story is too. It's this you know world where children are sort of beset on all sides by these like either creepy but ultimately not dangerous, or actually like malevolent adults, and have to like band together to overcome that. And so there's this very like wicked Roald Dahl kind of fun to it. And the way that the story is often told in just word bubbles, I think, is really fun. And it reminds me of Down in the Dumps with Jack and Guy, which is also extremely dark. Like Down in the Dumps with Jack and Guy, I think this is also an allegory. I feel like that's pretty safe to say. I mean, it takes place in Germany, presumably. A lot of the children characters have like Star of David armbands, and the main antagonist is this like mustachioed guy who hates the children, and I feel like he's an allegory for Hitler, and I feel like the children are an allegory for the Jewish people. So the story being about the kids overcoming this like, you know, nasty child hating, very reminiscent of the child snatcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, he's got little children, how I hate them, how I wish the bed bugs ate them. Who, like I think it's safe to say that them overcoming him is kind of a story about the overcoming of Hitler, and also nicely keeping with this, like, keeping you down to earth kind of vibe. There's a letter after the story is done, after the bad guy's defeated, warning you that there's more like me out there, and will come back if you aren't careful. So that also feels like an allegory for World War II and anti-Semitism. So I love this book. It's got so many things that I want. It's got creepiness. It's got seriousness. It's got darkness, but it's also got fun. There's so many moments where I laughed in this book. It's really silly. It's over the top. It's a fairy tale. There's a moment where the kids turn into bears. So it's got that whimsicalness to it. It's illustrated by Marie Sendak, and the drawings are gorgeous. And I can't say anything. But I love this book, and I'm gonna buy it. It's just one of those ones that I feel so lucky that I'm doing this, because when you find treasures like this, it's just so exciting. It makes all the crappy reading worth it. So those are my books for today. I've got a few other books that I have in the library, but I haven't actually read them yet, so I'm not going to talk about them, and I'm going to go and return these and get another big batch. Hey, I'm making a little addendum here. I'm going to try and keep it brief. I realized that there was another book that I sort of read. I didn't think it really counted because I didn't finish it at all, but I figured, heck, I may as well review the books that weren't good enough for me to finish, because that's the thing. So I started reading this. It's called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor. And I got it because it was one of the things, they've got these top peak picks, they call them, at my library, where you can, they're popular books that would normally not be available because too many people would have them hold, and they have them right there for you if you want to get it, but you can only have it for 2 weeks. So got that. Tried to read it. Man, I mean, I probably didn't have a lot of time to read it, so maybe it's a good thing that it wasn't very good, but it kind of talks a lot. It does this sort of almost feels like it's over reassuring you at the beginning of the book that this isn't just pseudoscience, this is real science stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, why wouldn't it be? It's a book about breathing. There's science there, right? So I was all ready for it to take it seriously on those claims, but then it claimed it a little bit too hard, and sure enough, once it starts getting into it, it just immediately started being real anecdotal about everything. Just very I did this experiment on myself and here's what happened, and then it kind of presents that in the same, with the same sort of weight that it presents anything scientific, which I don't even really get to the part where it did anything scientific, but I presented it with this kind of and therefore conclusion, you know what I mean, which is that's not scientific whatsoever. Now I get why you were so ready to be oh, it is science, don't worry, I'm very scientific about this, but then you're just going to be anecdotally here's what happened to me personally. I feel like a lot of what I had to say, it said over and over and over and over again, and it could have just said it in a single sentence. Breathe deeply through your nose. That sums up the first 3 chapters that I was able to get through before I started skimming. Pretty common sense stuff, if you ask me. Felt like a lot of filler, so I was not a fan. Check it out if you want, I guess. Hey, just got back from the library, and my phone. Here's my haul. Got a lot of books this time, so I'll see you whenever I read these.